I guarantee your melodies are going to improve by the end of this video. Today's tips are going to work for any genre, and it's going to save you tons of time as you don't have to go and watch 20 different melody tutorials, as I've really got everything you need to know in this video. First up, we have chords. Chords are specifically very important because if you mess up this part and then move on to all these other steps, it's just not going to sound how you want it to, because you're going to build everything off of your chord progression. And pretty much every genre of music uses chords. And the easiest way to start any chord progression is just one note at a time. So right here, we're just going to try to make 4 notes sound good together. And if you already know this, we're going to get a little bit more complex in a second. Just pick out any note that you think sounds good. Select your notes and you're going to move them up 7. So I'm just holding shift to do that and then dragging the notes. Now basically you have a few options here. You can either just build major or minor chords very simply by going up either 2 or 3. So you put your note here or here. A lot of the times if you see a note line up like this, it's an indication that it's probably going to sound good if you put the note here. So let's just test that with this right here and this right here. So this would be a minor chord because there's 2 spaces in between here, and then this would be a major chord because there's 3 spaces in between. It works out. Now if we moved it up here or down there, they don't work together. So let's just go ahead and do that for the rest of these. And this right here. And then if we look here, that F is lining up as well. So chances are it's probably going to sound good. If you end up liking any of these sounds I'm using today, I'm going to be using my bank Lost Nights, which I've been using so far, as well as my bank textures. They also come as one-shots. So if you do not have analog labs, you can still enjoy those sounds. And then if you want to make your chords sound bigger and more interesting, there's a few things you can do. First thing, we can just take these bottom notes, and this is just going to make it sound a bit more full. Drag these out. Again, I'm just holding shift and then moving my mouse, and then just drop it down right here. And if you want to make these sound even bigger, we can turn them into what's called 7th chords. And so to do that, you're either going to move up 2 spaces or 3. That might not always be the best option. Another thing that I like to do, I'll just go and line up certain notes like this. So we got E playing all throughout. And then if you want to take it a step further, what you can do is you can transpose different notes. Basically, I would take this E, hold Control, and then go up, and it's just moving that note up to like a higher pitch of the same note. And this can just make things sound a bit more open. If you want to make it more complex, we can just look, maybe add a note right here, because that lines up. Add a note right there as well. Let's try it right there. Spice this up a little bit and make it sound even more interesting. One of the easiest ways to do that, and I'm going to give you guys a few ways you can do it real quick, is one, you can just chop them up, add like a nice little rhythm here. And maybe you think, oh, this sounds a little bit too bright. Select all, do Control A, and then you can just, drop them down a little bit. And it'll still sound good. You're just changing the key. And if you want to go in and make it sound like somebody actually played it, you can play it if you know how. Or just go and play with each of these notes, because when you're playing a piano, you're not hitting everything at the exact same time, not holding every note down for the exact same time. You can literally go and do something like this with each of the different notes. You just want to add slight little variations. And then a quick option you can use is Control A, go to Alt R, and then you just want to go in and play with these velocities right here. That's like the speed at which every note is being hit. And then just go to Alt S, and that's going to strum it like you would a guitar. And this is going to make it so everything's not being played at the same time. You just have to shift this time. If you want to go crazy, you can do something like this. And then before we move on, one just super simple and easy trick that you can use, and it works every single time. If you ever get stuck and you're not sure what chord to add next, if you just move this up or down 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's always gonna sound good. We gotta talk sound selection, which is easily one of the biggest issues a lot of producers have. But the area I see people struggle with most when it comes to sound selection is when they start adding additional sounds. And so one of the most common ways people will add an additional sound is just layering their chords. And when I'm picking out a sound to layer, I'm really just trying to add something that the other sound is lacking. So we take this sound right here, which is like a really soft, kind of airy sound. Maybe we add something that's a little bit less airy. So we're just using this Sounds Amazing. And now if we want to get a little bit more, I don't know, fun with our layering, you can also do something like this and take the same sounds and make it half as long as well. Probably wouldn't use that sound, so let's change it real quick. Or if we wanted to sound maybe a little bit brighter, we just bring this over here, shoot this up an octave. So next up we have counter melodies, and it's kind of where a lot of people just blow it. If you're having trouble getting artists on your beats, selling beats, etc., this might potentially be the issue, as you can make great sounding beats, but if you don't leave enough space for an artist, then they can't use your beat. First method you can use, which is really easy, you can just kind of pick out notes within the chord. That can kind of be your starting point, and where you want to add tension, just pick a note that's in the scale, but go off of the chord. So we just do something maybe like this. So if we look at this right here, these are all notes that are in the chords except this C right here, and you're gonna hear a little bit more tension right there. And all I did was I copied this over, and then I just changed one note to a note that's part of the chord, and you get a pretty good sound just doing that. If you just want to kind of fill up tons of space, but you still want it to be singable or rappable, we'll copy them onto the sound right here and just go to Alt-A. This will turn it into an arp, and you can kind of just play with the timing right here. And the best way to check if your counter melody is too complicated is just see if you're able to hum over it or not. If you can hum over it, you can sing over it, you can rap over it, etc. There's really two things you need to make your melodies sound good. And if you don't do these things, when you try to add cool effects, it's just gonna sound like ass. One, leveling. So let's just take all of this right here, put it on here, just do Control-Shift-L. How loud you make things is really going to depend on what do you want to sound the loudest. A lot of people will make their counter melody sound too loud. I typically like stuff hitting around 15 for my instruments. And I typically like to tuck my counter melody a little bit behind maybe the other instruments, but really it's going to depend on the song you're doing. If you're just getting started though, you probably have your counter melody too loud, so just turn it down a little bit. Next we have EQ. I think it's probably like the most important effect tool that you can use. Really, you kind of just want to think of it as a tool to kind of shape your sound, take out parts of the sound that you don't want, you can create space if the sounds are kind of clashing, and you can kind of emphasize a certain aspect of a sound as well. So these two sounds are kind of competing with each other if we just listen. Really not that bad at all, but I gotta do an example. So if we just take this EQ, we can remove frequencies that might be clashing. Then maybe I want to brighten this sound up instead. And if we're going to add an 808 and a bass and stuff like that, you'll typically want to cut out you know, around 200 hertz or so.